Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another session of Q&A. Tonight we're joined by Abouna Mikhail. Abouna, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
So we'll get right into the questions. The first question we have is, how do I find the strength and faith during difficult and confusing times to believe the following Bible verse applies to me, especially when something has happened to me which I feel may be too difficult to live with? So we're talking about the verse Philippians 1 verse 6. Being confident of this very thing, that he who hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. Thank you.
That's a good question, because we face it every day of our lives, and I think it comes to our personal relationship with God. And I think no one is without any hardships, and sometimes we go through phases of confusion as well, and we don't know what to do. And that's why the promises of the Lord are faithful to live with, and at the same time to experience His presence in our lives. And that's how St. Paul, in this epistle here, he said it then, when he says, be confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. So basically, we would like to have faith in our Lord, that the past, the present, and the future in His hands. And we know that once He started the good work, He will perfect it, as St. John Chrysostom said. So we need to abide in Him, and we need not to be shaken, and to have faith in every step we do through Him and in Him. By doing that, it's a personal experience. And we know many stories that people they face in their lives, and to be honest, we see God's hands in their lives. Has it changed them completely, and they become more closer to the Lord? And that's the way how we know God. We don't know God by facts or knowledge only, but by personal experience. And this is based on our personal relationship with God. The more we are close to Him, the more we will understand Him, the more that we'll, when we go through difficulties, He will be in our lives. I'll tell you a story about Father Luke Sidros told me. He said to me, there is someone in America. He used to be one of the disciples of Father Bishoy Campbell. And he was a highly qualified person. And all of a sudden, his friend told Abouna Mikhail in America that that person, he shuts down everything around him, and he doesn't like to talk to anyone, or he doesn't like to talk to any priest as well. And he said, basically he's going through a hard time, and his friend begged him even to talk to someone. He refused. And then Abouna Mikhail told him, tell him that I would like to talk to him once. So that friend went up to him and said to him, let me think. And then after a while he said to him, okay, he's going to talk to me once, and then I will do whatever I would like to do. he meant by that he's going to commit suicide, I think. And then he wants to end his life because he was so upset, he was so frustrated. And Abouna looks at the Rus, called him, and he answered, and he explained to him why he was upset about all of that. And then he said to him, you need to see God's hands in your life and what God has done for you. And once you do that, you will develop the faith and the trust in the Lord. And he said to him, I'll give you a prescription. Okay. He said to him, get a piece of paper and have a line in the middle. And then he said to him, write the good things that the Lord has done for you on your left, and the things that you are upset about it on your right. And if you are happy to get back to me, that would be great. Okay. And I think Abouna Mikhail prayed a lot during that time for him. Especially, he talked highly about him. Because he was a faithful servant and a good person and really a Christian person. And then after a while, Father Luxillarus received a phone call and from that person, and he said to him, thank you, that your prescription has worked. So what does it mean? That he looked what the Lord has done for him, and the things that he was upset about it and was confused about it. So if we say good people and faithful servants might face this kind of difficulties, how bad, everyone that he doesn't have a relationship with God. And I think God allows this to happen for us to grow in his love and to understand him more and to depend on him more. And I think that verse gives us the confidence that whatever God has started a work, God will complete it and will make it perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, beautiful. That's beautiful. I love the story as well. It's really heartwarming. Okay, the next question we have is, can you please explain the importance of putting special requests and needs in writing on the altar to attend a liturgy? I know that this practice is common in the Coptic Orthodox Church and specifically used by St. Kyrillos sixth. Sorry, he's right behind Abouna on the side there. As a means to have all problems solved by placing them on the altar and offering the holy obligation. Also, is there a special connection with the priest offering the holy obligation and placing the request on the altar? If so, should all written requests be given to the priest to be read first before putting on the altar, or can they just be placed on the altar by the deacon? What is the difference?
In our Coptic Orthodox Church, of course, there are many things that we can experience, and one of them is the power of prayer. And number two is the power of the altar. And I think Pope Kyrillos has displayed that to us in many ways, and all other fathers as well. But actually, this comes back from St. Paul as well, when he said in Philippians chapter 2, verse 17, that I'm the Father, the Son, and all this. But one God, I mean, yes, if I'm being poured out as a drink offering on the sacrifice and the service of your faith, I'm glad and rejoice with you all. So here, St. Paul became a drink offering on the sacrifice and the faith of his people, which is offering a sacrifice. That's why, as we say, the power of prayer, the power of the altar, and the power of the sacrifice that we have in our lives, which in that case, like the body and blood of Christ. when we offer the body and blood of Christ, this is the highest power that you can receive. And this is important to all of us to enjoy that. God has given this to us to enjoy His power. And we receive through the liturgical services this power. Because when we celebrate the liturgy, we celebrate His death and His resurrection, and also His ascension. So it's really a great power. Okay? But I will come to the part about the ritual part. What usually the priest does on the altar. After Abouna choosing the orban or the bread, he takes some water and wash the urbana, okay, and then wrapped it in the cloth, and then he goes into a deep personal prayer, and he will be silent, and some of the priests, they kneel down as well in deep prayer. What he does during that part, he has three important requests. Number one, all the supplications and the prayers and the requests of all his congregation. Everyone by his name, especially the people they told him before the Mass or before the liturgy. So he prays for the sick by names, everyone by his name. The people are in need, the people they go through difficulties. The people, they are sad because they lost the beloved ones. If there is any disaster here and there, or if any difficulties, or any kind of request from his congregation. And at the end, he remembers also those people who have been departed, or who have fallen asleep. That's by name. So it's important to gather all this as well to Abouna before he offers the oblations. And it would be nice if in writing, because that he will remember everyone. Okay, even if some people, they put it into the basket of the hamal or the urbana before choosing the bread as well, as a kind of remembering this as well. So the priest can mention their names during that time. This is the first request. The second request, he prays generally for all people they are present in the church or are not present, for his family, for his spiritual sons and daughters in general, for the church, for the world. That's a public and general request, and those people who have been departed as well. His fathers, like the priests or the bishops or metropolitans, he prays for all of them. This is the second part. The third part, he will pray for his own sins. So the first one, specific request and praise by the congregation, everyone by his name. The second one, a general request for the church, for the world, for his family, for his spiritual sons and daughters and his spiritual fathers. Those people, they are alive, or these people, they have fallen asleep. And the third one, he prays for his own sins, for the forgiveness of his own sins. And then, by doing that, this is important for us to seek, that power during that in this liturgy, and at the same time, putting this on the altar. The altar is a blessed place, because you have the body and blood of Christ there, consecrated by the Holy Spirit, by the Myron, and it has its own power. And also it's a blessing. Not only to put the request, but also to have any matter to put in the altar, to have a blessing for it. people now they put some projects on the altar to bless it, or something related to work to bless it, or something related to marriage to bless it. So the altar is a source of power, but also it's a source of blessing. And Abouna conducts and performs this liturgy to celebrate the power of Christ for all these requests. But also, even if there is no paper, you can pray during the Mass for any issue or any matter. I did see many prayers, they pray for many issues during their prayers as well. You can feel that as well. Also, during the procession of raising of incense, like in the Pauline procession, for example, during the liturgy, the priest takes the censer with the incense inside, and he goes around the churches to collect all the prayers of the congregation. He used in the past that he blessed everyone by the cross on his head or her head, but now because of the number has been increased, so if not many people are there, they can do that. And also to collect all the prayers, because this is the time as well that all the incense going up to heaven, and this is the prayers of the saints. So I think it's an experience to learn how to do things, to receive the power of the body and blood of Christ on the altar, and also to receive all the blessings from it. And the people, they have experienced that, they felt that power. And as St. Paul, he says here, and poured out as a drink offering, the priest does that. He poured himself out as a drink offering on the altar. For all these requests, for the faith of his children, for the services of his children, and also to make them happy and rejoice. That's why he says at the end, that verse, I am glad and rejoice with you all. So what a great blessing, what a great joy when someone prays for something and God gives it to him, and he answers him through the power of the body and blood of Christ. What a great joy. That's a great rejoice for everyone to experience that. But at the same time, if God answers in him in a different way, it's a great joy to see the wisdom of God in that. So, and this is really important, to understand that we learn how to submit ourselves in God's hands and to accept from him his will.
So we could also ask then, in terms of a special time for someone from the congregation to offer a special prayer that maybe they haven't put on the altar in writing, is it when the Abouna is doing the procession? Because I know there's so much happening throughout the liturgy, or is it just when you have the moments in the liturgy? Because the only thing I can tell you is that then your attention is withdrawn from what's actually happening in the liturgy. When Abouna is walking around, then I know he's saying his prayers. So is that the ultimate time to make those special prayers? And also when we put candles for people, what's the significance of that compared to the...
You can send your prayers to Abouna anytime. Even during the Mass through a deacon, and the deacon will give it to Abouna, and Abouna will open it and will pray for it. So the deacons are not allowed to read it because it might have some kind of requests, and Abouna can pray at any time. In terms of people, they put a candle seeking for the help of God, and this is actually a brotherly love. When you put a candle for someone, he's in need. That's the compassion and kindness and love between brothers and sisters in Christ, or between members of the family, to seek the power of God and the help, and at the same time the intercession of the saints, especially St. Mary, or the prayers of the saint like Pope Kroll or so.
Thank you so much, Abouna. I might ask you to hand over the microphone to Nora because she has the next question.
please explain the importance of El Neiros or Coptic New Year, which is on 11th of September this year? Why is it such an important celebration for our church?
Okay. That's very good one. Especially we celebrate, the feast of the Neiros on Monday. But I need to give you historical background about that. The Coptic calendar, one of the ancient calendars in the world. Tut, who is a god of science and the pharaohs, he started that, and he based his calendar on a big star. It's called Canis Majoris, or they call it the dog star. It's a big star, bigger than the sun, and the light of that star is about 200 times than the light of the sun. And usually it comes online with Earth and the moon and the Earth and the sun once a year. So he based his calendar on that. And he divided the calendar into 12 months, each month about 30 days, but he has an extra month, it's called the small month, which is about 5 days or 6 days in leap year. We call it the small month. That's like, the original one that we talk about it. So before the flood of the river Nile, the Egyptians used to have a big celebration. And they used to pray to their gods, to have the flood of the river. Why? Because flooding of the river Nile will fertilize the land and for cultivation as well. It's so important to them. And they say a prayer. It says, bless the river. In their ancient language is called Niaru Ismu. And then after a few years, of course, with the language decreased in use. So the Europeans, when they came to Egypt, they saw at that time, when in the flooding of the river, Nile rose. So Niaru Ismu, Nile rose. Okay, so it become Nairuz or Il Nairuz, and El means the in Nairuz. And that's how it came from that. And then when Samak started in his mission in Egypt, he didn't stop that. He added to it the liturgy and the procession of around it in a spiritual way to celebrate, because during that procession around the river and the banks of the river Nile, they used to have their songs and all that stuff, and also they eat some food like mulukhiyya, gawafa, and all that stuff, and they enjoy being there. Samak, through his wisdom, didn't stop this. He didn't. He made them continue celebrating that, but he added to it the spiritual aspect, and that's why now they have the procession, they have the liturgy, they have the icons to go around to make it so spiritual. And then when Diocletian started in his reign in 284 to 305, he had a wish or a desire to kill all the Christians, and their blood will be in the streets to reach the knee of his horse. Of course, he didn't achieve that, but the church, through its wisdom, made 284. This is the start of the Coptic calendar. Okay, and we celebrated at the same time as the flooding of the Nile, believing that as the river Nile floods all the land of Egypt, the same thing, the blood of the martyrs floods all the land of Egypt. And as the river Nile fertilized the lands, and we had many fruits out of that, the blood of the martyrs fertilize our hearts and bring forth many fruits in the faith of Christ. And that's how we call it now Il Nairuz, but also that, you know, the Coptic year of the martyrs, or the feast of the martyrs, it starts from 284 till now, and that's the difference between the Roman calendar and the Coptic calendar. All right. Now the church has added to it like many things. For example, they eat dates as well. Okay, why? Because dates has something related to the martyrs, especially in Egypt, and they have red dates. Red from outside, this is the blood of the martyrs. White from inside because they have white heart, and the seed because they have strong faith. So they celebrate this all the time, like, and you can see that, you know, that our life is really in touch with our spiritual life. There is no separation. So whatever we eat, we remember our spiritual path, and we remember our martyrs. And this year is so special because the church now, if we talk about, you know, the martyrs in early centuries of Christianity, now the church is going through the same phase again. So that phase is so important to our children here in Australia, in Sydney, to see that we are not far from that. We can go through that at any time, and we can sacrifice ourselves for the sake of Christ, and through that it brings many fruits to our church and to us as well. There's a lot of good out of that, and it makes us so proud, not only about, you know, the martyrs in the past, but also about the recent martyrs that we have had recently in our church.
So there's also a story about the palm tree itself that gives the dates.
The palm tree has a lot of resemblance between the palm trees and the martyrs and all the Christians in general. The palm tree is so tall because Christians, they are they long-suffering and patient. The palm tree is so strong, okay, and the same thing, the faith of the Christians are so strong. The palm tree looks dark from outside, okay, but white from inside. The same thing like Christians. We don't care about how we decorate ourselves from outside, but it's really important to keep inside pure. And also the palm tree can be shaken, cannot be shaken, but can be like in a waves way right and left according to the pressure of the wind. The same thing, the Christians like that. They like in this way right and left, but they are so strong, okay, they are so flexible when they have any tribulations and hardships during that time. And also it's really nice if someone has a palm tree around him, he can like you know, throw a rock or a stone to the branches, and you can get dates. The same thing when the Christians, they have some kind of sudden, like in the tribulations, or it's exactly like, you know, throwing a stone on them. By doing that, you will see the fruits and the virtues coming out from them.
And one other thing, I know when we have a special procession and everyone struggles to try and hold one of the saints, or can you explain just a little bit about, you know, that procession, and if we do that any other time in the year where we gather all of the saints and the relics we have in our church to do that?
Usually during the Vespers of the Nairuz, or during the Feast of the Martyrs, we gather all the relics of their martyrs and we anoint them after a prayer is called of 99 or God have mercy. And then we ask all the deacons, all the people to carry candles and the relics, and we go in a procession around it, and we chant hymns as well, especially for that feast, and was really a great honor for all of us to receive the blessings of our martyrs and to resemble them in their lives, how they were faithful, how they were so strong, how they were brave, and the same thing, we go through the same phase.
Thank you so much, Abouna. Do you have any other questions? John, any other questions on that? Thank you everybody for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again at the next session of Q&A. Thank you so much, Abouna. We're praying for you. Thank you, Nora.